What's good, everyone? This is Monaro and welcome to my channel. We're starting a Feast for Crows, so today we'll be going over the prologue and chapters 1 through 7. Hope you enjoy.
Pate sits with his fellow students, Molander, Alaris, Armin, and Rune, at the Quill and Tankard in Old Town. He yearns for Rosie, the pretty daughter of a serving maid, a 15-year-old girl whose maidenhead can only be had for a gold coin. The other students discuss dragons and whether there are still any in existence. Pate is waiting for an alchemist who has promised to meet him there that evening. The alchemist has offered to change iron into gold, requesting that Pate steal a particular iron item in exchange for some gold, and he said he would be back in 3 days to make the exchange. Molander and Armin continue their argument about dragons. Molander says that sailors' tales speak of dragons in far places, often accompanied by a young queen. Alaris keeps splitting thrown apples with his arrows. After the last, he brings up the Targaryens, telling the others that Viserys Targaryen's sister Daenerys is still alive. Molander drunkenly toasts her, only to be shushed by Armin. Lazy Leo appears then. Molander bristles at his appearance, Armin asking more diplomatically whether Leo wasn't confined to the Citadel for 3 more days, but Leo shrugs this off with a quip on the meaninglessness of time. He asks them to buy him a drink, since he lost his money gambling and eating elsewhere. He offends them each in turn, then attempts to mollify them by confirming that Daenerys is alive and has hatched 3 dragons as the tales come out of Karth. Archmaester Marwyn even gives them credence, Leo says. Marwyn, called the Mage, is widely considered unsound, partly because of his practice of speaking to small folk and other unwholesome people. After the others scoff, Leo adds that there is a dragonglass candle burning in Marwyn's chambers. The group breaks up after that, most of the students returning to the Citadel. Pate remains with Leo, hoping that the alchemist will still come by. Leo needles Pate a few more times about Rosie. Pate wishes he could kill Leo, but Leo is a Tyrell, with relatives in positions of power. He sees the sun rising and realizes that the night is over and the alchemist has not come. He leaves with a final warning to Leo to leave Rosie alone. Pate wanders through Old Town in the early morning. After nearly being run down by a cart, he sees the alchemist standing over him. He tells Pate that he didn't want to intrude on him and his friends. He asks Pate to steal something from Archmaester Walgrave's quarters. Pate opened the box under Walgrave's bed and found an Archmaester's iron key which supposedly opened every lock in the Citadel. After wrestling with his conscience, he took it as well as a sack of silver coins. He asks the alchemist for his gold dragon coin, and the alchemist bids him follow him someplace more private. They go through several winding streets and end up in an alley. The alchemist gives Pate the coin, but the boy hesitates before offering up the key. He asks the alchemist's attention, which he will not say, and asks to see his face, which is nondescript. After giving the key to the alchemist, he turns away feeling lightheaded and collapsed dead on the cobblestones a few moments later. Aeron Greyjoy, who in the chapter is referred to as the Prophet, is drowning men at the beach on Great Wick. This is a practice in which a worshipper of the drowned god is held below the water until he drowns. The priest then resuscitates him. Through this initiation, the person is stronger. What is dead may never die, but rises again, harder and stronger. Gormund Goodbrother appears to bring Aeron to Lord Garold Goodbrother. Aeron initially declines but relents when the messenger tells him the king, Aeron's brother, is dead. During the journey, Aeron remembers his brothers. His father married 3 times. The sons of the first wife died young. The eldest son from his second marriage was the strongest and fiercest of the remaining. Aeron admired Balon, although they were not close in their youth. When they arrived at Lord Goodbrother's hall at Hammerhorn, Aaron demands that everyone in the hall be sent away so that he and Garl Goodbrother can speak privately. Lord Goodbrother insists that his maester will stay as well. Aaron disagrees and prepares to leave, but the maester stops him by informing him that Euron Greyjoy has occupied the sea stone chair. Aaron is shocked. He remembers his brother, but with little love. Goodbrother wants advice on whom to support, but Aaron wants to pray first and leaves for Pebbleton. Again, Euron thinks back to his youth. He was not a very religious man, but rather a drunken sod. This changed when he fell overboard in a sea battle during Balon's rebellion. He almost drowned and became a devoted follower of the drowned god. Aaron has discussed the succession with Balon. Though Balon wanted his daughter Asha to succeed him, Aaron did not agree with having a woman rule the Iron Islands. Theon is a weakling and probably dead. Balon's eldest brother Euron is ungodly and Aaron hates him. Thus Aaron makes up his mind. It must be Victarion. A few days later, Aaron has arrived at Pebbleton and starts to preach. Asha has also claimed the throne. Now Aaron's followers and a number of lords look to him for advice on whom to support. During his preaching, he finds his inspiration. The Ironmen should elect the king in a king's boot, as they did in the old days. Every captain is to go to Naga's Hill on Old Wick, the ancient place where the old kings were chosen. Aaron hears his followers take up his call and knows he has done the right thing. Prince Doran has been at the water gardens for nearly 2 years now, watching the children play in the pools while trying to deal with his gout. Captain Areo Hotah hears the approach of Obaro Sand, eldest of the Red Viper's bastard daughters, and bars her from disturbing Prince Doran's rest. Deadly as she may be, she is no match for the captain, but the prince calls her into his presence before they come to blows. Obara demands justice for her father, imploring Prince Doran to marshal the Dornish army and give half to her so she might march on Old Town and burn it to the ground, and the other half to her half-sister Lady Nym to march up the King's Road. Doran tells her that his brother was not murdered, but died in single combat, and that Lord Tywin has promised them Sir Gregor's head. Unappeased, Obara mocks her uncle for his meekness and stalks off after he tells her to await his word in Sunspear. Fearing the uprising in Sunspear incited by the Sand Snakes, Prince Doran tells Hotah that he must return to his seat at the Palace of the Sun. The captain reminds him that Prince Myrcella is there and that Sir Aerys Oakheart sends letters to Queen Cersei. Hotah thinks he and the Kingsguard will eventually cross swords, and when that occurs, the captain will kill him. The next morning, the prince and his retinue begin the journey back to Sunspear, but along the way they come upon another of the Sand Snakes. The beautiful Lady Nym is far more tactful than her older half-sister, but no less resolved to seek vengeance for her father. Scoffing at Obara's demand to go to war, Lady Nym tells her uncle that she needs only her sister Tyene, and the two will assassinate Cersei, Jaime, Lord Tywin, and King Tommen. Stating that his brother was only to take the measure of Joffrey's court and not seek revenge for Elia, despite the 17 years that have passed, Nymeria responds in parting, "My sisters and I shall not wait 10 and 7 years for our vengeance." Arriving in Sunspear, the prince's retinue is accosted by townspeople calling for vengeance for the Red Viper. In the old palace, Princess Arianne greets her father and tells him that Tyene Sand awaits him in the throne room. The third of the Sand Snakes is embroidering when the captain encounters her while bearing Prince Doran to his high seat. Tyene offers her uncle the cloth she is knitting, which shows her father mounted on a sand steed so that he will not forget the Red Viper. Prince Doran responds, "I am not like to forget your father." Tyene counsels her uncle to wed his son Trystane to Myrcella now, and then crown the princess as is the Dornish way. This would incite the Queen Regent and Highgarden to march on Dorne, where the prince's armies could bleed them in the high passes and treacherous deserts. When she calls her uncle fearful, Doran advises her, "There is a difference between fear and caution." Tyene raises her hand to touch her uncle, but Hotah brings the butt of his long axe down on the marble floor and cautions her, "My lady, you presume." Step from the dais, if it please you." The sand snake replies that she meant no harm and loves her uncle. He loved his brother. After she takes her leave, Maester Calliote rushes to the prince's side to make sure he was not pricked by one of Tyenne's needles. Shortly after, Prince Doran commands the captain to round up and confine all the sand snakes, including Illyria's young daughters, in the cells at the top of the spear tower, but with no blood spilled. When Hotah tells him that the common folk will howl when they find out, the Prince of Dorne replies, "All Dorne will howl. I only pray Lord Tywin hears them, so he might know what a loyal friend he has in Sunspear." Cersei dreams that she rules from the Iron Throne, and courtiers are paying her tribute. But the pleasant dream turns into a nightmare when Tyrion appears and ridicules her, makes the great lords, proud ladies, and young knights snigger at her as well. She notices she is naked and tries to cover up. Hasty moves make her wound herself on the spikes and blades of the Iron Throne, and soon she is engulfed in a mortal combat with the throne that is trying to rip the flesh off her. She is woken up by her frightened maid Sanel, accompanied by armed men who have arrived to deliver the news of Lord Tywin's murder. Cersei is still drowsy and believes this to be part of her nightmare. For a moment, she mistakes the Kingsguard knight who has been sent by the Lord Commander for Jaime himself, and expects Tyrion to crawl from under her bed to laugh at her, although she knows that he is safely in his black cell and his execution will take place the same day. She drank too much wine last night, she thinks. She now recognizes Jocelyn Swift, Sir Osmond Kettleblack, and Sir Boros Blount, and notices Lannister guards, while she is being handed lemon water to waken her up. She wonders whether the news can be true, insisting that her father is surrounded by guards day and night. Sir Osmond tells her the guards were on their post, but a secret passage has been found beneath the hearth in the Hand's Tower, and Jaime has gone in to inspect it. Cersei is worried about Jaime's safety as well as Tommen's, but she is told that guards supervised by Sir Loras Tyrell have been assigned to watch over the king. This stirs up her resentment against the Tyrells, and she wonders whether the murder was their doing, yet does not dare to speak this aloud. She commands Sir Osmond to escort her to the Tower of the Hand and Sir Boros to make certain that Tyrion is still in his cell. She doesn't believe Tyrion would dare to raise a hand against their father, but needs to be certain. Outside, the sun is beginning to rise while the stars can still be seen, making Cersei think that the great star of the west has fallen. Sir Osmond tells her that Lum, one of the guards, found the body in the privy. She already feels the hole left by Lord Tywin and decides to act swiftly as she suspects there will be attempts to push her aside, as always. She wonders whether Stannis Baratheon is behind the murder. She enters the tower, thinking that not crying makes her the only true son her father ever had. Climbing the many stairs to the Hand's chamber prompts her to think about tearing the tower down. As she enters the hall, she finds the room full of guards and servants, whispering among themselves. Cersei resents their presence as well as the fact that she was not called first. She orders Sir Meryn Trent to show the people out and is informed that her father's body has been brought to his bed. When she enters the bedchamber, guards are present again, as well as her distraught Uncle Kevin, kneeling by the bed and trying to pray for his brother. She notices how small the door to the secret passage behind the hearth is, making her think of Tyrion again, then settling for Stannis or the Tyrells as more likely suspects. She knows about the rumors of secret passages in the Red Keep, and that Maegor the Cruel supposedly killed the builders of the castle to keep them secret. She thinks of other, yet undiscovered secret passages to other bedchambers, and has a vision of Tyrion using one of them to get to Tommen. Cersei has a look at her father's half-naked body. While reflecting on how he looks much older and smaller than when he was alive, she already notices a smell emanating from the corpse. She is furious that the quarrel that killed Lord Tywin has been left in his stomach and orders it to be removed. Cersei wonders whether she should act desperate and claw at her own face, as she heard Catelyn Stark did when her son Robb was killed before her eyes, and wonders how Lord Tywin once received news of his own father's death. She commands that the bells must toll for her father, just as they did for King Robert. She asks for Pycelle and wants him to prepare the body, but is told that the Grand Maester has already been there and left again. This angers her more because of Pycelle's uselessness in old age. She calls for Maesters Balabar and Franken instead. Cersei asks about Jaime and is again told he's down in the secret passage inspecting the depth of the shaft found there. She is worried about his safety, thinking of his lost hand and how the murderer might await him in the dark. Qyburn is shown in offering his service as maester. He informs her that he treated Jaime's hand, and she remembers that he came down from Harrenhal with her brother. She notices that he doesn't have a maester's chain, receiving the answer that it had been taken away by the Citadel, while his knowledge is still there. She orders him to remove the quarrel and prepare her father's body for the Silent Sisters. Qyburn asks what he should do with the girl. Cersei has not noticed the second body in the bed before, and takes a look at her naked body, observing the golden chain around her neck and that her face is as black as Joffrey's when he died. She is furious and demands to know what the girl is doing there, receiving the unsatisfying answer that she had been found there where she is, and that it was Tyrion's whore. She thinks that Lord Tywin never used whores and defensively tells a guard how he treated his own father's mistress after his death, parading her naked through the streets of Lannisport. Qyburn suggests that Lord Tywin might have been questioning the girl about her mistress Sansa Stark's disappearance. Cersei eagerly seizes on this notion, but has a vision of Tyrion mocking it. She can't stand staying in the room with the girl any longer and goes back to the hall. She finds Sir Osmond accompanied by his brothers Osney and Osfried, and orders them to make certain that nobody will ever hear about the dead girl in her father's bed. Her body is to be disposed of no matter how, and everyone who talks about this matter will have their tongues torn out. She watches as the Kettleblacks put the girl's body in a blanket, remembering that the girl's name was Shae, and that she came to her the night before Tyrion's trial by combat, asking that promises made to her by Tyrion and, allegedly, Cersei be kept, including a manse in the city and a knight to marry. Cersei made it clear that she would get nothing until she told them the whereabouts of Sansa Stark, making her leave in tears. She orders the Kettleblacks to carry Shae's body out through the secret passage, but wants to have the chain around her neck delivered to herself. As Sir Osfried is about to step into the tunnel, Jaime emerges from it. She rushes towards him, asking whether he has found the killers, but is told that the shaft ends in a chamber where half a dozen tunnels meet, some of them closed with locked iron gates, and Jaime needs to find the keys first. He suggests that the killers could still be hiding in the maze he just left. Cersei again envisions Tyrion climbing through the walls like some monstrous rat, then reassures herself with the thought that he is in his cell. She says she wants the murderers to be found and that the whole tower will be demolished if need be. Jaime hugs her to console her, and she has a rush of desire for him. She whispers in his ear, asking him to take over as Hand of the King to complete their father's work. But he pushes her away, declines the offer, makes her jokes about the hand without a hand, and says that she shouldn't ask him to rule. Cersei feels the rejection like a slap, realizing that it had been noticed by everyone present and that the whole castle will know soon. She angrily says that she didn't ask him to rule, as she is going to do that herself as the Queen Regent until Tommen comes of age. Jaime replies that he doesn't know whom to feel worse for, Tommen or the Seven Kingdoms. She slaps him. They are both admonished by Sir Kevan to take their indecent behavior out of the room where their father's body lies. Jaime apologizes for his sister, pointing out that she is forgetting herself while grief-stricken. This makes Cersei want to slap him again and regrets her impulse to ask him. She wonders whether the position of hand should be abolished altogether, remembering how Jon Arryn and Eddard Stark meddled in her affairs, the latter forcing her to get rid of King Robert before she could deal with his brothers, and how Tyrion sold Myrcella to Dawn, made Tommen a hostage, and killed Joffrey. Cersei settles on her Uncle Kevan as the next hand, as she considers him loyal and prudent, while unambitious to challenge her as the real power behind the Iron Throne. She thinks that she needs men supporting her, and that the current small council will not do, with Grand Maester Pycelle too old, and Lord Mace Tyrell and his bannermen, Lord Paxter Redwine and Lord Mathis Rowan, not to be trusted. She also can't rely on Jaime, who has lost his courage with his hand. She again considers the possibility of the Tyrells being involved in the murder, as Lord Mace must have known he can never rule the Seven Kingdoms as long as Tywin Lannister is alive. However, She realizes she has to proceed carefully against the Tyrells, with the city full of their men and Loras Tyrell, now Knight of the King's Guard. The thought of the engagement of Tommen and Margaery Tyrell still makes her furious, and she questions Margaery's virginity. Cersei intends to use Varys to find out more on this front. The thought of Varys makes Cersei aware that the eunuch isn't present, while he is usually around when something important happens in the Red Keep. The only explanation for his absence is that he was involved in the plot, preempting his own downfall, as Lord Tywin never had any love for him. She thinks that Varys might have known about the secret passage and acted on behalf of Stannis. She orders Sir Meryn to find the Master of Whispers and bring him to her. Sir Boros returns red-faced and puffing, announcing that Tyrion is gone, his cell open, with no sign of him anywhere. Cersei is appalled, thinking her nightmares are coming true. She points out her orders to keep the imp under guard day and night. Sir Boros says the gaoler called Rugen has gone missing, while 2 others were found asleep. She orders them to be killed. Cersei's paranoia about Tyrion breaks out fully and reflects that he has already killed her mother, her father, and her eldest son, and will try to murder her too, remembering the prophecy she once received about her little brother killing her. She gets queasy, and Sir Boros tries to sustain her, but she recoils from his touch, thinking that the Knight of the King's Guard might be one of Tyrion's creatures too. He offers her a cup of water, but all she wants is Tyrion's blood. She envisions Tyrion grinning at her, feeling his hand closing in around her neck, the very moment she thought she was rid of him. Brienne is traveling to Duskendale, seeking the whereabouts of Sansa, as she was charged to do by Jaime. Having found few leads in King's Landing, Brienne is asking nearly everyone she can along the roads and villages, but never mentions Sansa by name. Upon the road beyond Rosby, she comes upon a camp with 2 hedge knights who offer to share their meal. Mistaking her at first for a man, Sir Illifer later remarks on how she bears a shield with the sigil of House Lothston, a disgraced family who once held Harrenhal. Brienne was given the shield by Sir Jaime, who had taken it from Harrenhal. When she tells the 2 that she lost her own shield, Sir Illifer figures out by her size that she must be Brienne, murderess of King Renly. The maid denies having killed Renly, and the hedge knight agreed to travel with her to Duskendale. After passing a large group of poor fellows, or sparrows, lowly holy men bound for King's Landing, bearing the bones of septons killed around the riverlands, they catch up to a merchant guarded by a couple of men and another hedge knight named Sir Shadrach. Joining forces along the dangerous road, Sir Shadrach tells Brienne in private that he knows about the maid she seeks is Sansa Stark, and that he seeks her as well, but for a purse of gold offered by Varys. Brienne is disturbed by the fact that the knight knew whom she was speaking of when she repeated Sansa's description to the merchant's group. When the party stops at an inn for the night, Brienne slips off on her own, swearing to herself that she will not fail Jaime, having already failed King Renly and Lady Catelyn. Down in the library beneath Castle Black, Sam is trying to dig up any information on the others for his Lord Commander Jon Snow. Returning to the surface, Sam considers how hard Jon had been working the men of the Watch. He meets Dolorous Ed, Pip, and Gren, and they mention how much Jon has changed, acting different and barely spending any time with his friends, although he never misses a day of practicing his sword work. He learned that Stannis has plans for Val, Dalla's sister, seeking to use her in order to forge an alliance between the Wildlings and the Northmen. Thus far, only the Karstarks, who have no other choice, have agreed to ally with Stannis. Sam arrives at Jon's Solar, and Jon shows him a letter he plans to send to King Tommen, which declares that Stannis is aiding them in their battle, but the Night's Watch is not sworn to his cause. They discuss how Melisandre means to sacrifice Mance Rayder for his king's blood. Jon states, "Man's blood is no more royal than my own." He reveals to Sam that he is sending Gilly and the boy far away from the wall. Sam tells Jon that he uncovered little on the others, but one book mentions dragonsteel swords as being effective against them. However, neither is sure if dragonsteel or Valyrian steel are the same thing. Jon breaks the news that he is sending Sam to the Citadel so he can train to become a maester and replace Aemon. Sam will travel by sea from Eastwatch along with Gilly, the baby, and Maester Aemon. The thought of becoming a maester frightened Sam, bringing back memories of his father's wrath when he had mentioned training at the Citadel to him when he was a boy. His father had chained him by the neck in a cell and left him there for 3 days, telling him, "No son of House Tarly will ever wear a chain." Lastly, Jon commands Sam to never call himself Craven again. The next morning, as the party prepares to set off for Eastwatch, where they will join up with Darien, Gilly begs Jon to find a good wet nurse for the other baby. Nearing Braavos, Arya recalls how she originally wanted Captain Tenircio Terrace to sail for the Wall. She had no such luck, but concluded that the Free Cities would be a good place to land, considering that Syrio Forel comes from Braavos and possibly Jaqen H'ghar as well. During the voyage, many of the sailors and even the captain have tried to get her to learn and remember their names, and many seemed afraid of her. The captain's younger son, Denio, is telling Arya some of the history of Braavos and the titan that guards its port. The Free City honors all gods and even has temples devoted to them, and was founded by the Moon Singers when they brought the people to Braavos to escape the dragons of Valyria. The Titan of Braavos is a massive statue and has arrow slits and murder holes strategically placed to attack any boat that tries to pass beneath without leave. Furthermore, the Free City of Braavos is protected by the Arsenal, a massive fleet of ships and their fortified port. The captain has his older son Yorko row Arya to shore so as to get her off prior to customs coming aboard. As Yorko navigates the 100 Isles of Braavos, he points out many of the sights before dropping her off at the quay in front of the House of Black and White. Arya disembarks, assuring Yorko that she will remember his name, and enters the temple of the many-faced god. Within, the temple is quite dark with dozens of odd statues, and Arya notices several people in alcoves who are either dead or dying. Soon, a robed man with a kind voice tells her that the House of Black and White is a place of peace. He asks her name, but despite Arya's use of nicknames, the man keeps asking until she admits that she is Arya Stark. When the man asks if she fears death, Arya answers no. The man removes his cowl to reveal a decaying, horrible visage, but she sees through the illusion. Impressed, the kindly man asks if she is hungry, to which Arya thinks, yes, but not for food. Cersei arrives at the Great Sept of Baelor for Tywin's wake. She worries. Tommen seems to have a cold, and the current High Septon was appointed by Tyrion. She wonders if she should have him removed. Tommen and Cersei both notice the stench that is emanating from her father's corpse. After the service, the procession of mourners come to offer condolences to Cersei. First is Felice Stokeworth, who mentions that her sister is ready to give birth and the family would like to name the child Tywin. Cersei is offended and brusquely forbids it. Next is Lancel, who is still looking half dead. As he begins to mention his love and then his newfound faith, Cersei heads him off by saying, "Atonement is best achieved through prayer. Silent prayer." The only mourner to please Cersei is Tyeno Merryweather, who promises that all her friends in the Free Cities have been notified to watch for and seize Tyrion. When Mace Tyrell comes before her, he mentions that his uncle Garth is on the way to assume the duties of Master of Coin. The Queen Regent, not wishing to see another Tyrell on the small council, immediately backpedals that Giles Rosby has already accepted the post. This upsets Tyrell and his mother, as Tywin had wanted Garth to assume the position. The Queen of Thorns then brings up the terrible smell in the sept, and Cersei wants nothing more than to get rid of the clever old woman. But Lady Olenna states she will not depart until Margaery is wed to Tommen. Leaving the sept, Cersei rides back to the Red Keep with Giles Rosby, asking him belatedly to be her new Master of Coin, which he accepts. Back in her rooms, Qyburn pays her a visit, revealing that he discovered in the undergoaler's sleeping cell a gold coin that dated back to the Gardener Kings of the Reach. Once again, Cersei is suspicious that the Tyrells had a hand in Tyrion's escape and Tywin's murder. Qyburn then asks if he may experiment on the dying Gregor Clegane in the Black Cells, since he is more adept at the nature of death than any of the Archmaesters from the Citadel. She agrees with his request, but tells him to bring her Gregor's head when he dies, as her father had promised it to Dorne. Finally, Kevin meets with her for dinner, as she had requested. Cersei asks him to be Tommen's hand. Kevin first admonishes her for making Mace Tyrell look like a fool in front of half the court. He then informs her that he would rather help his son Lancel take control of Castle Derry. He offers to take up the position as hand, provided Cersei removes herself from King's Landing and returns to Casterly Rock. Cersei is infuriated, and a fierce argument takes place during which she threatens Kevin. Unfazed, Kevin counsels her to name Randall Tarley or Mathis Rowan as Tommen's hands. As both men are Tyrell vassals, this makes Cersei even more angry, and she accuses him of abandoning Tommen. As he departs, Kevin reveals that he knows who Tommen's father really is.
Well, that's it, everyone. Thank you for stopping by and watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to come back for more. Again, thank you for watching. Bye.